Hello everyone, welcome back. My name is Joshua and this is Rooftop. Now, today's workshop we are going to be doing a glass painting. So as you've read the title, we're doing a Japanese glass painting. So just to clear out anything, this is going to be done on a mixed sort of media. So I'll be using acrylics and I will be using paper, and I have here a photo frame. So you can have any photo frame. So we'll be painting on this glass. And what I have done is I have taken two of these glass sheets. So I have two of these, and then I have two papers also of the same size for this workshop. Now our theme here is going to be Japanese style painting. So in this, what we're going to do is we're going to see layers. You must have seen me talk about layers when it comes to painting. So over here we are going to be creating or using layers in a much more literal manner. So let's start and see what we have. All right. So as you see here, let me just show you my materials once again. I have a frame, and this also has glass on it. I'll be using this one. I'll be using one more. And then I have two sheets of paper. Okay. So what I can do is I'll just take all my materials first. What I'll do is I will open this up. And I will take out the frame, the back side of this, and then in this I will remove this piece of glass as well, because we'll be painting on both of them. So here I have my frame. This is the back side of it. We won't be painting anything on this. Just keep this back. Okay, perfect. Now if you look at the reference, this is a Japanese painting by Hokusai called The Great Wave. Now I'm sure many of you all must have at least seen this picture somewhere or the other, and it's been quite famous. So in this painting, what we're going to be doing is we're going to see how we can divide the layers. We're going to have a background, we're going to have a middle ground, and then we're going to have a foreground. So before we start into that, let me just briefly explain it so that it will be a little easy to understand once we start working in it. So let's say, for example, okay, let me take these paints that I have. Now if I pile them onto one another, we can see that in a way it looks like one. But now what we're going to do is we're going to divide it. Now yellow is clearly at the back, so I will separate the yellow. Blue is in between this yellow and brown, so I will separate the middle ground. So we have the background, we have the middle ground, and then we have the foreground, which will be in the front. So if you look at the reference, you can see in the background we have a brownish color, or the sky. So we'll take the sky. So the sky is going to be a background, and I'll take my palette here. I will take a bit of white. That should be more than enough. And then I will take very little burnt sienna. So this brown that I'm using is burnt sienna. So burnt sienna comes from the land of Siena, which is I believe somewhere near Italy side. So Sienna is the place, and the color sienna. So we have different siennas. We have raw sienna, and then we have burnt sienna. So raw sienna would be the color of the sand over there, whereas burnt sienna is when that sand is taken and burnt, the color that we get, that is burnt sienna. Now I'll take this white, and I'll take a little bit of brown, and I'll just mix into it. We don't do much also. We'll start with a relatively light color. Let's have a look. That should be good enough. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do the background first. So I put a little bit of extra water in this because I wanted to have a little transparency. Transparency meaning we can see the paper a bit. The paper is not entirely covered by the paint. We get to see both of them. I'll take a bit more water here. Okay, this seems a little too dark. Can mix a bit more white in it. That should be good enough. And I'll cover this paper entirely. So now the paper, I'm only going to be using it for the background, so for the sky. So then when I add the glass to it, you'll get a very nice effect. So normally for glass painting, they use only one glass. So we have different type. We have just basic acrylic on glass, and then we have stained glass as well, which is a different type of medium, especially made for glass. It's a much thicker paint, you could say. It's a thicker and more transparent paint, so that when light passes through the glass, it will pass through the paint as well. This is why in churches, if you go to see the windows that are there, that have these colors or these designs or these stories drawn onto them, they tend to glow when light passes through them. So that is a stained glass technique. But today we will be using acrylic. As everyone at home has acrylic paints, we'll be doing something according to that. Okay. Now what I can do is the same color, I'll add a bit more brown to it. Now if you look at the sky or the background, we have three different colors. We have the top area, which is, or this area, which is a little dark, the center part, which is a bit medium or much light in color, and then the bottom will be relatively dark. Okay, so now we can what I will do is I will just very gently like this. One second. Okay. This part as well. Now, you want to make sure that we get a flat color. We do not want a little bit of patchiness when it comes to this. sky right now. So the technique the original painting was done in is in print or block printing. So that is an entirely different, you could say, video of its own. I won't get too in depth on that, but it's good to know what technique was used. Same thing over here. I'll take this down. Like that. Very roughly, I've just marked out this area. Okay. Now I have a cloth here as well. You can use any cloth or maybe a pocha kapda for all you know. And you can use it to clean your paints. So now I'm just cleaning the wet side of the palette, as there is a bit of white in there. You can use it to clean your brush, clean the table. Normally I use it to clean my brush or to remove any excess water that may be there on the brush. Now what I will do is I will take a little bit of black. I don't need too much also, maybe just a couple of drops. Yep, that is more than enough. Because black again is a very strong color, so we aren't going to use too much of it. Okay. So now we want to get this kind of a faded color over here. So what I will do is maybe say around there. Okay. Is I will take my brown and add a little bit of black to it, not too much. I'll add a bit of water to this as well. Like this. Now that I want it to have a very smooth transition, the technique I'm going to use is wet on wet. So what do I mean by that? So I'll take a wet brush. Now this has only water in it. I'll take a wet brush and I'll just spread water all over this area here. I'll take it up all the way till here. Just make sure that the water is spread out evenly, because we do not want any blotting on the paper. So this technique is called wet on wet, and the reason why it's called wet on wet is because I'm first wetting the paper and then I'm going to take wet paint. You can see how easily it is spreading. I'll just go from edge to edge so that we have a very even spread. I'll clean my brush. Then this paint that is there, I will just drag it upwards while it is still wet. I'll remove any extra water. And I'll start painting it downwards like this. And if I want any area to get darker, then I can just take this paint and apply it back here. So now I feel like I can get this a little bit more darker. I'll take a dot of black, mix it into the brown. Remember, we want the brown to be more visible than the black. Like this. I'll take it downwards. Now for the bottom part, you don't have to worry too much since that will be covered. Okay. Now if there's any extra water kept on, I will try to remove all of that. Now what I'll do is I'll take my paper. So I'll keep it like this. I want that faded color to be there. And I will keep this to the side for now to let it dry. And since we're using acrylics, the table also, if you just add some water to it, and take your cloth and wipe, all this color will go. Like that. So I like to keep my table clean. Okay. Now I'll just make sure whatever water is here is gone. Okay. Now what we need to do is we need to, okay, I have two over here. We need to draw over this, but we can't just immediately start drawing it. So what I will do is I have taken another piece of paper here, which is the same size as this glass that I have. So what I've done is I've cut it out. Now inside of this, I will do the drawing inside of the paper. So here's my pencil right here. Okay, I'll keep my paints there. Okay. Now if you look at our reference, we won't be drawing everything that is there precisely, because this is a relatively small drawing. So if this was a bit bigger, then okay, you can try to fit it in. Or if you want also, you can try fitting it in this as well. But for now, I won't be taking everything at the bottom. I'll just be reducing it a little bit. Okay, so now what I will do is I will start drawing the painting that is there. So I will, okay, so very roughly I will start first over here. Now the lines are going to be a little wavy. Get it? Wavy because wave. So I will start making it like this. What we can do is, if there is like a certain area with, too detailed, then we can minimize it a little bit, or we can just add or subtract certain parts of the painting. Put this there. Same thing here. Now the big wave that is there, or the main wave which is coming from the left side of the image, what I will do is I will put that in the middle ground. So I will have my paper here, then I will have another sheet of glass on top, which will be the middle ground, and then I will have another one above that to have my foreground, so that it will have a very subtle three-dimensional effect. Okay, now I can drag this part out. and then from here, I think somewhere around this side, be here also. You can have the wave come down like that. And then I'll have this wave come here. Like that. With this wave to come down, and here I will have this one go up like that. And then this one you can have a nice straight line over there. Now if you see, there are I think about 3 boats, but what I will do is I will just keep one. I won't draw all 3 of them. But for those of you who are watching and would like to add it to the painting as well, you all can feel free to do so. Then I think about here, can start adding the other waves to it. So there are quite a lot of very tiny details in this. What I can do is I'll add this boat over here. Like that. Take this part up. Bring the nose of the boat. That should be better. Bring the nose of the boat and then take this part down. Here we can have Mount Fuji at the back. Right about there. Okay. Right about there. This part will come down. Okay. That part is done. Now when we start painting on the glass, we need to be a little careful, because once the paint dries, it will be very difficult to, make corrections to your painting. Okay, you know what? I can add a boat here also. Okay, so over here, very subtle lines. Most of it is just we'd call it a highlight to the wave. Over here. Now, I'm sure most of y'all are just waiting for me to get to the glass part, but trust me, once we do start getting into it, you will not regret waiting. So now, the reason why I'm drawing on paper right now is because we're going to use this to then trace the drawing onto the glass, and then over that we are going to add the paint to it. Okay, now we just have to finish this area here. Okay, this part, is it a bit straight? I think what I can do is I can just take this part inside a little bit. Okay, and now in here I will just draw very lightly where the waves will come. Okay, I think that we can just paint directly. Okay, now what I will do is I will put my glass on top of it. Let me just clean this. Clean it as in not just dirt, but the fingerprints as well. Okay, I will place this on top. and I will start drawing over this. So I'll make sure that the paper is properly aligned. I do not want the paper to be, moving later on, or even the glass to be moving. Okay, check each corner and see whether it is precise. Okay, now over here what I will do is let me check. Yeah, so I'll take I'll take this. I'll just draw this there. Now these lines, I'll keep it very wavy, but since it's water, it can take any shape and form. Now I'm drawing on the glass. Now you can use paint also for this. And sometimes what happens is that when you use a paintbrush, the lines can become a little too thick. So let me take this part here. Again, make sure that even if the paper does move, or if the glass moves, you put it back into place before moving forward with it. If you've joined late or if you have any questions in general, you can let me know in the comments and I can answer them for you. So if you see, you can see the reflections. I mean, I'm drawing on the glass. That, and then there will be times where I'll just go back and look at my reference again to just double check. Maybe to just add some, tiny details here. Okay, now for this wave, what we'll try to do is we'll try to keep the line in one straight motion. Whenever we draw the line, we'll try to draw it in one go, basically, but as much as we can. Because what that will do is it will let your lines look much cleaner. Make that a little bigger. Okay. On this side also, on the boat, we have a little bit of design inside, and over here we can start adding a little wave kind of effect. Just like that. Okay. Now, when we're done, we'll be flipping it over this way. So the part which doesn't have paint will be on top, and the part which has paint will be at the bottom, over here. Now, if you look at the reference, we need to see all the smaller details first. So, let me show you. For example, if you look at our reference, we have a lot of light blue over here, which is, you could say, smaller in detail as compared to the white over here, or the blue this side. So I will take a little bit of blue. Yeah, I have a little bit of blue there. Now I'll take let's say a relatively small brush, not too small also, not too big as well. Over here we can see. Okay, so I'll keep two brushes. I'll use these two brushes, flat brushes. Okay, so now to mix the color, I'll first take a little bit of blue and a lot more white. because I want a relatively light color. Now, for this, our paint shouldn't be too too thin. Okay, take this here and mix a bit of white into it. See if the color is okay. If I want it lighter, I'll take a bit more white. Make sure we mix it well. Maybe a little bit more white. So you can take your time when you're mixing the color. Now if you look at this area here, a little bit on this side, a bit here, a little bit in these areas also. So Farida, thank you. I'm glad you like how it's turning out so far. Which country is this come from? So the painting is a Japanese style painting and I'm using acrylic colors. Okay, now what I will do is over this I will just put some acrylic paint on there. I'll try to keep it in the lines. So I can paint over the lines, but I'll try not going out of it. Like that. Over there, over here. So this is gonna be like a shadow for the water that is, starting to fall. Here as well. A little bit here. Then if you look at this side, just start adding the paint. If I flip this over, you can see, let me check, yeah. You can see that the outline is still there. Whereas if you look at this, the outline is all covered. So we need to think about how it is going to look like in the front. Same thing here also. We need to remember that before we add any other color to it, we need to make sure this color, or the first color that we put, is dry. I can put some color there as well. And a little bit down also. This area is there. Remember, we need the paint to be thick. Since this is a glossy surface, the paint can not stick to the glass. So due to that, we'll try to, leave the paint as thick as it is. Even if it doesn't stick, it is okay. Because with this painting, since we're doing water, it can give it a very, splashy kind of effect. Like that. Maybe a little bit more here. Okay, let's see anywhere else. This side. What I'll do is I'll remove the extra colors there and there. I'll use a smaller brush so that I can, go for the much finer details. Over here also we can add a bit of this blue leaking onto the front. And that is the wave. Let's make sure I'm not painting on any part I don't have to. So over here I can add this, come down a little bit on this side. take a bit more paint. Okay, and then after this we're going to go for the darker blue. Okay, let's see if we've applied this everywhere we need, because once we start adding the other color we can't come back to this, so we need to be very careful with that. Okay, now I can darken this color a little bit more. If you see, there are certain areas with a sort of a medium blue color, maybe a little more. Okay, now I can cover this entire area here. What you can do is you can use just one glass frame also, there's no issue. So assuming most of you would have, like, one of the same size laying over, we can do on one instead of two. Okay, now let's see now over. So we'll try to cover up as much of these areas as possible. I'll take this color again. Put a little bit on this side. I can even do I have too much paint on my brush. I don't need that much. I'll take this color. we can thicken this out a bit. Give it, varying sizes. It's not always very uniform in size. It's not always the same size. Like that. And then the same for this area as well. And this I can just give it a few strokes to show that the water is being pulled upwards. Now this light color will be, you can paint over the light color also if you want. Because now our main painting is not over here, it is going to be on the flip side. You can add some in certain areas in between. So the back part is supposed, or this part where you're painting is supposed to look messy. Now if you see over here, you can see how messy this area looks, but when I flip it, you can see the outline and everything. Now I'll take my dark color, or my dark blue. Clean it properly again. And now this blue that I have, take a bit of it and add a little bit of white to it. Just a tad bit so that it thickens really nicely. So even though it may get lighter, it's not going to get that light also. Let's see. Now over here, okay, the paint is dry. You can just cover this part entirely. Now remember, there is white also going to be there. So even while you're covering, make sure that the part where white needs to be does not get covered. And make sure your finger also doesn't touch this until the paint is dry. Otherwise, the paint will come out very easily. And here also we can flatten this part there. Anashka is asking what type of paint am I using. I'm using acrylic paints on a glass panel. So you can use a glass panel, you can use acrylic sheets. Similar to this, we have something known as acrylic sheets, which looks like glass, but it is made out of acrylic. Okay, and then we'll take a bit more and with this area. As well. And we have Mount Fuji also. Over here. Put a little bit there to give that kind of mountainy effect. And then I think a bit here as well. Okay, we need to make sure that certain areas are dry before we start painting over it. Here also, in case of any part that is not painted properly, you can always go over it again. Because what can happen is your paint can end up being a little too transparent, meaning it will be a bit see-through. So in those areas you can just cover it again. Like that. Okay, now what we can do is let's see. Okay, we can add the white color. So I'll take this white. I'll take my brush. Make sure that there is no color in it. Okay. I want it to be properly clean. Now I can take this white. Again, I'm not mixing water in it because if I put water on this, it will just spread. Again, make sure that it is nice and dry. I think for this white, we might need to add a couple of layers to it. So what I'll do is I can just cover up the bigger areas first. Then with the thick paint, I'll do the smaller areas as well. Okay, there's a bit of blue in there. That paint is still a little wet, so I'll leave that area for a bit. So when it comes to painting on glass or acrylic sheets, I would suggest, so there's this type of acrylic paint called heavy body acrylic paint, which basically means that it has a lot more pigment in it. So I would suggest using that, because if you look at this right here, this one is pretty transparent and it's pretty thin basically. So I'll have to do a couple of layers for this. So whatever thick paint is, I'll just spread that so that it can dry a little quicker. Sorry if it went out of frame. Okay, I'll pull this part down like this. Okay, now I'll wait for this to dry. So while I am waiting for this to dry, I can do this one boat over here. Now for this boat, I will take a tiny bit of brown, very small amount I've taken, and I will take yellow as well. And this I will take this yellow first, give it a good mix, take a bit of blue, make this slightly greenish in color. We take a little bit more blue, we'll darken it a bit. Okay, and now in the dark area here, I will add this green color. Nice, got covered up in one layer. Now I'll clean my brush. In this I will take a bit of yellow, and I already have some blue. I'll take a bit of yellow and a little bit of brown also. Make sure I mix this correctly. Okay, this seems to be, I think, a little thin. Might need to do 2 layers for this. Let's see. Yeah, there's a bit of water to it. I think there was still a bit of water in my brush. like that. Now these areas are still, it's drying, but it's still a little wet in certain parts. Okay, I think most of it is relatively dry, or at least dry enough that we can paint over it. I'll remove as much water as I can from my brush. Okay, I will take my white again. Now that we already have one layer of acrylic paint down, we can use that as a base to hold the next layer that we are now painting on top. Now, while I work on this, does anyone have, any sort of workshop that they would like to see that I can then do maybe for the next one or for the upcoming workshops? Maybe if you're interested in painting something, maybe something specific, or maybe just a type of painting or a medium, you could say, that you want to learn, you can let me know in the comments. Okay, now let me just okay. Cover. Make sure you cover the outlines. I just had a sneak peek of what it looks from the back, and it does not disappoint. Although this would technically be the back, but since we're painting here. Okay. Now I will take, where's my brush gone? No, right here. Okay, there is quite a bit of paint in here. I will take this color again all of this. A bit too much water. I'll just put this down wherever necessary. Okay, now while I leave this to dry, let me just put these back in. I'll keep this to the side. And I will take this paper once again where we initially drew. And then I can take a round brush, take as much paint as I can. I will just make some sort of water droplets falling down here. Now this will be the water droplets that you see in the reference. So I'm making some thin, some thick, some big, some small. Yeah, one thing I forgot to mention is that your final work is going to be mirrored. So now the wave is over here, but by the time you're done, the wave will be like this on the opposite side. That is because you'll be flipping it and using that area itself, the back side. Okay, I think this much should be enough. Okay, so before I put everything together, let's just have one final look at how we started, what we did, and how we're finishing it. Okay, so we started with a blank sheet of paper and we painted the background. We did that, and once we were done with this and we let this dry, we took another sheet of paper where we drew the wave or a main image. Once you got done with that, we put this on top, and then we did an outline with a marker, and then over that we painted the colors that we need. So we started with the colors that are used in very small quantities. So you put that down first, and then you went for the medium-sized ones like this over here, or the medium blue, and then the ones which cover the larger areas, that is the darker blue, and then the white to finish it off. And we did the boat as well over here. And then we took a second sheet of glass and we put some dots on it. Okay. So now let's see how this will turn out. So remember so I have my frame over here. My frame. So what I did last, I will put first, and what I did first, I will put last. I'll put this down here, like that. Should I lift it up? Hold on. I think it should be okay. Alright, I'll put this here. And I will take this. Let's have a look at it. There you go. Look at how lovely that looks. We have this. So now I'll be putting this face down. I'll put this there. And then I will take my background and I will put it in here. Now I'll close my frame. Oh, how could I forget? And be careful when you keep opening and closing a frame like this. It can, bend the metal a little too much and it can just snap off or just break up. Okay, there you go. Much better. Push this down. Make sure it is tight. Or push down entirely so that your glass or the paper doesn't shake. Let's have a look. There you go. So the background we did in paper. Then we did the wave, the boat, Mount Fuji. And then on the third sheet of glass we did the water droplets that is falling down. So let's have a look again. So this is the final work that we have done for a Japanese glass painting workshop. What I will do is I will keep this here. And just open this a bit. Keep this down. Okay, perfect. That looks good. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this workshop and I hope you learned something new as well when it comes to the techniques, the process of how we go about this, the logic behind this type of glass painting. So I hope you enjoyed this workshop, and if you would like some more or some more unique workshops, you can have a look at our YouTube page, or you can let us know in the comments as well. And every day at 12 p.m. and at 5 p.m. we have different workshops and more unique stuff just coming out. So if you've enjoyed this workshop, join me for the 5:31 as well. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.